Hello my friends, it's the Game Boy Geek here. Today we're all going to be kings, moving around the board, gathering different gemstones that are going to give us different abilities like movement and attack and defense and magical abilities. We're going to be trying our best to demolish our opponents and try to get the Omega Stone in the end. Today we're taking a look at Ascended Kings. This is from Incarnate game. This is a battle royal game for 2 to 4 players. This is on Kickstarter right now. I'm going to give you a high-level overview. I'm not going to show you all the rules. I'm just going to kind of give you some of the highlights of what you're doing for the game so you get a good idea of what the game's about, and then I'll see you on the other side. At the beginning of Ascended Kings, starting with the last player going forward, everyone gets to pick a king and take the player board. Now before I start this preview, this is a Kickstarter preview, so any of the art components that you see here are subject to change, and you're going to want to check the project page for the final assets. But here you can see this beautiful artwork. Here's 3 of the kings that you could choose from. Here's 2 more kings you could possibly choose from. Check out that amazing artwork. Now here's showing you the entire player board that has some of the kings on them. And this is a really big board. Here's my hand. I mean, just to see the scale of this board is pretty large. Now again, these are just 3D printed prototypes that we're looking up here of the different king miniatures. These aren't even close to the final product, which will be made by plastic injection molds. But here's just a little glimpse of the different sculpts and what they look like from the different kings that you're selecting from. Now the game is played over a certain amount of rounds depending on the amount of players, and certain events will happen each round. The kings in the game will start on specific spots as shown here on the board, and over the different rounds, different gemstones like Island will be put over the board. You'll be moving around and attacking each other throughout the game. Each king is going to start with their own board. They're going to start with dice, the same color as their inscription on their board. They're going to start with a bloodstone here. They're going to start with 3 gemstones of their choice. Now you get this really cool crown here. This keeps track of your level. And as you're in level 1, you can have up to 9 gemstones that you can hold here. As you upgrade over the course of the game, you'll get 3 more, and you can upgrade and get even 3 more. Everyone else is going to start with 3 cards. Each player is going to take their turn, do all their actions, and then go to the next player. The first thing everybody will do on their turn is focus generation. And what you can do here is, on this mat here, you just see I have 3 Ilem gemstones here and 3 Aria. Now, anytime you start your turn with 3 here and the full transmutation, you get another gem of that type. So because I have 3 here, I can add a white one here. And because I have 3 Island blue here, I can put it here. These go from up here. And the core stones of these 3 can be rearranged anywhere you can as long as you don't go past your level. Having these allow you to activate special abilities I'll go over later, but in general, red is for attack, white is for move, green is for defense, and blue is for special magical powers. After focus generation, each player has to choose whether they're going to have a latent turn or an active turn, and your actions that you can take are different between each of them. Let's go over latent first. This is sort of preparing for battle. In this case, everyone starts the game as a king, and so you'll draw 1 card from the Ascendant deck. Here's what the cards look like. They have different spots. The tops of the cards give you certain things when you discard them from your hand. You completely get rid of them. You can do it anytime, even during battle, and this will give you a certain amount of gemstones, for example, or even give you more dice that you'll be able to roll. I'll go over what those do later. And there's also different special abilities that you'll be able to activate. I'll also go over these later, but you're drawing cards at this point. Next is you would roll the focus dice. Now those are the dice you got with your color at the beginning of the game. You'll roll 1 more than your level. So for a level 1, you'd be able to roll 2, so the higher level you are, the more dice you roll. But of course, as I just mentioned, sometimes you can discard cards to get more dice, and that allows you to roll and get more gemstones. But in this case, let's just roll these 2. You'd roll these dice, and you would get a certain type of gemstones depending on what you want to do with these dice. Now the game itself does come with nice player aids, but there's a last minute correction, so I want to use the correct one. I printed this out of my own printer, that's why it looks like this. But we have a 5 and a 4. Now, what this will allow me to do is get a pyre for the 5 and a red pyre for a 4. And those are both red, and I could put them in anywhere I want. Again, you can rearrange these in your level anytime you want. But let's just say it was maybe 2 and 1. Now I could take 2 aria, which is 2 white ones for the 2 and the 1, or you can add these up. You can add as many dice as you want for a single result. So I could turn these 2 dice and spend them to get an Aegis, a green one, and place it there. So that's how you can spend your focus dice. Now with your focus dice, you can get Ilum, and it says X+. At the beginning you need 7 or more, so you need to use at least 2 dice to get one. But the more you get, the easier it is, because you could spend a 6 to get one, and then later on you could spend 5 to get one, and so it gets a little easier as you get those. And after acquiring those focus gems, we can then optionally transmute or untransmute. Now there's no finite numbers to how many of these you can do, but you can never have more than your level. So right now these core transmutations, I can only have 1. So you could untransmute. So I could put these back, assuming I have spots for them. And let's say I did have 3 of the green. Maybe I wanted to transmute here because, again, anytime you do this, you get a special action for this color that we'll go over later. Now after optionally transmuting or untransmuting, you can do inscription. And this is also optional because you have this inscription based upon your king. If you have a card that has that inscription, you can put it face down here. This means is later on when you're on a turn where you're doing an active turn, you'll be able to activate this effect without spending the Ilum as the currency to make this happen. You can also uninscribe, which is on your turn you can take this back in your hand, but you must show everybody that it was truly your inscription there as well. Now that'd be the end of your turn, it would go to the next player's turn. But let's say you decide to do an active turn. You have a different set of things that you'll do. First thing is you'll roll for the Ilum placement. So you'll roll these 2 dice, it's a percentile and a 10-sided die. This comes up to 75, so it's 75. You would take an Ilum and we put it in that spot on the board for 75. If it goes where somebody actually already is, they actually just get to take it right away, unless they're full and then it just goes in the same spot as them. Then you'll be taking actions. You can take as many as these as long as you have the resources to do so. First thing you could possibly do is level up. You go from level 1 to 2. Because I'm going to level 2, I need to give away 2 Ilum. And here I have 2. I would get rid of these, put them back in the supply, and I'd be able to do that. To go from 2 to 3, I'd have to get rid of 3 Ilum. You could spend 1 Ilum to draw from, in this case, the Ascendant deck, because it's the first turn, everyone's still kings. Another thing you could do is move around the board. Now we discussed how white aria is to move. You could discard 1 white for 1 movement around the board. And so let's say I got rid of 2 of those, I could go 1, 2, and by default, when you're a king, as you are when you start the game, you can only move in orthogonal ways, up, down, left, right. Unless you've transmuted, because that special ability allows you to move diagonally. Now as the game moves on, fire will be making its way onto the board, and when you're moving you have to make sure that you go off the fire as soon as possible. The next thing you could do is attack, and use that by using the Pyre gemstone. Now I only have 1, so I could use 1 to attack once. You could attack as many of these as you have. And by the way, you can only attack orthogonally unless you have transmuted this, and then you could also attack diagonally. Now for each attack, that other player that's being attacked, this player, if they have Aegis gemstones, they can take some off of their pool to defend 1 attack for each of these that they have. Keeping in mind, you have cards that you can discard at any time, even during battle. That red player could have discarded this to get 2 more Aegis and a Pyre, as long as they could have room for it into their gem pool, and then discard those to defend the attack. Now when someone takes damage, they take 1 black dire gemstone for each time they've been hit. And you'll notice the top one has black in here, because if I have to place a black, I have to rearrange the gems that are there. And that just makes it sure that once it's full, if you have to place another one and you don't have room, well then you have to get rid of some of the gems. If these were full and a black one came in, you have to get rid of them. Another thing you could do is activate a focus ability. You remember these cards have abilities. This is how much Ilum you must spend to get an ability. This is the text of the ability. This is what it looks like just pictorially. This says remove 1 dire, which is the black gemstones, from your gemstone pool and give it to a surrounding opponent or tile. Or if you have placed an inscription before, if you remember we placed that face down because it matched our inscription, we can now play that without paying the cost here and then doing the ability. And the last option you have during the active turn is if you've transmuted the Ilum, you can use one of the Ilum abilities. And they do different things, like you can discard an Ilum and an Aria stone and move to any of the places on the board that have an Ilum stone, and you get this. You could also remove an Ilum and an Aegis to get rid of one of your dire wounds. If you're in fire or adjacent to fire, you can get rid of an Ilum and a Pyre, and you would just move the fire 1 spot towards the edge of the board. And the last ability you could do with this is you can remove all 3 Ilum from your transmutation You do that during an opponent's turn, and during that player's turn, you cannot be attacked by focus abilities or special cards, but you can still be attacked by their pyre. Now, if you ever take enough dire wounds to come all the way up and match your level, essentially it's 2 plus your level, then you essentially have died. Your king has died. Now you actually flip your player board, your king is now gone, and you'll be using a miniature that matches the artwork there. Now here's the artwork on both sides of the board. One side is the king on the left, the revenants on the right. The miniatures on the left is the king, and the miniature on the right is the revenant. Here are those for all the different kings and revenants in the game. The rest of the game, you're going to be pulling from a Revenant deck instead of the Ascendant deck, and the only inscription you'll see there is there, so it's going to be very easy for you to activate powerful abilities without spending any Ilum. Now the last king standing, once all the others are Revenant, get a Ascendant die that adds to their focus die to allow them to get more gemstones. Now you will keep your same level, you'll get 3 new stones, you'll keep your Ilum, and you'll be able to come out on a board from wherever you roll the percentile and the regular die, just as placing Ilum earlier. Now you'll notice the different transmutations are 3 different colors. They're all 3. So once you have this finished, you can basically discard those. You can take a Ilum. You can go to anybody's board, including your own. And now you can activate any of the Ilum abilities that we've talked about earlier. And now as Revenants, you can move diagonally by spending just 1 gemstone of Aria. And you can attack diagonally by just spending 1 pyre. Now at the end of a round, you will turn this dial so it goes down to the lower number, and eventually it will get down to where it says flip, which you'll then flip this over, and then this will count from 10 all the way down to Omega, which will start the Omega War, sort of a clock for the game. Next, you'll roll this 4-sided die, and whatever side is on the top, that's which side the fire is going to come in from. So because this side of the board says 1 as the die, this would move in just like that. Then we would move the event in the arrow direction, and whatever gem is here, if there is one, we place it once we roll these 2 dice again and place it in that spot. If it's a fire, anybody who's now standing in fire takes a damage. Now as characters are killed throughout the game, they will release any bloodstones they've already accumulated onto the board, and you're going to pick them up. So they're going to be transferred from player to player, but the game ends, or gets towards the end, towards a Omega War, when any player either has all 4 bloodstones, or the round marker gets down to Omega. Then through a dice roll, the Omega Stone is placed on one of the outer edges. And during this phase, rolling for Ilum cannot be done in the active state. If a miniature gets onto where the stone is and has all 4 bloodstones, they win immediately. Otherwise, the game ends and you go to final scoring. And as you can see, it has to do with whether or not you got the Omega Stone, and how many bloodstones you had, if you were never killed, how many completed transmutations you did, and how many Ilum gems in your Ilum pool. And of course, you can also see the tiebreakers here. Alright, well there you have Ascended Kings, and obviously the miniatures are going to be awesome in this game. The artwork on the boards look amazing as I showed you, and as you can see, the gameplay has a lot going on with it. You're moving, you're gathering gems, you're maybe transmutating those to get a special ability. Maybe I want to be able to move or attack diagonally, or maybe I want to build up the Ilum so I can do some of those one of those 4 big Ilum abilities. Maybe I want to play cards with my inscription to be able to play special abilities that you don't know about without spending Ilum. There's a lot going on here. And then when you gotta avoid the fire, and then you're trying to not only kill the other kings, but pick up the bloodstones, and then you're turning into revenants as you die, and you become more powerful, and the cards you get are different. It's really cool because it has sort of 2 different games to it, where there's an arc where you're a king and then you're a revenant, and depending on what you are, you have different things that you can do. So I think that's a cool idea. So if you like this style of game where you're moving around, tactically trying to figure out which stones to get, which ones to use, then I think this is going to be one you're going to want to check out. Now, I've placed a link in the description of this video. When you click there, you'll be brought right to the Kickstarter project, and I'm sure those at Incarnate Games would love your support.